All right, so what I wanted to do to start off is talk a little bit about the schedule. So as you know, we're going to be moving into like a hybrid model next week. And so I just kind of want to throw my prototype out there and see how it sticks. Just like I did before when I created this schedule, I created another schedule with minor modifications. And I'm hoping that it will work with everybody else's schedule. I think it will, but let's just see. So what I want to do is share my screen with you. Hold on one second. Okay, so if we look at this, I have, this is the schedule before. This is the online only schedule. And so here we had modeling and prototyping, kind of bouncing back between first and second hour because of advisory meeting in certain times. And so the big difference between the hybrid schedule is Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday and Thursday is going to be that face-to-face interaction with your teachers. And for students in academic cohorts, the time that the COEs, or I'm sorry, the students in academic COEs, the time that we would meet is between 2 and 4 p.m. And so I have a chunk of time, and then I have the whole group, which pros and cons to that. So the way that we're gonna organize the classes is modeling and prototyping. Yeah, one thing I just realized is Jeff and Morris, this is not gonna work for you. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take this out. Yeah, so what we're gonna do, Jeff, I'm gonna have to figure that out, and Morris, I'm gonna have to figure something out when we can do modeling and prototyping on Wednesday and Thursday. Yeah. So it'll still be the same Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. So the meeting times will be the same. Nothing's changed there. But what's changed is, for the US students, modeling and prototyping will be during an 8th hour, which would be like kind of at the beginning of our 2 to 4 p.m. block. And then on Wednesday, so that we had, kind of a schedule set that on Thursdays for lab, we would all meet together and discuss the video and whatever news or updates that needed to be discussed. Thursday is kind of a full day, and if you look at the schedule, that you're probably going to get, there's not a lot of time between your classes and the actual block for the COEs, so from the 2 to 4. There is kind of a significant, I don't know, let me see. So this is the COE, academic COE cohort schedule for a hybrid, for the hybrid model. And so you see here, Monday and Tuesday looks the same. And then Wednesday and Thursday is when things get different, a little bit different. And so you'll see here, Wednesday, there is a block of time here that is not accounted for. So what I'm doing is moving our Thursday lab discussion to Wednesday before our block of time. Okay, so here you'll see like during 7th hour, that's when we would meet for the lab discussion. Okay, so that's a little bit changed. Also, what's changed a little bit is, we used to have check-ins on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Well, Mondays and Fridays are going to remain unchanged. Okay, so those are going to be the same. But Wednesday, I no longer have the opportunity to do check-ins during, I guess at all. So I've moved that check-in time to Tuesday. So now check-ins are going to be Monday, Tuesday, Friday. and then Wednesday will be the lab discussion. Okay. So this is kind of what it looks like as of right now. I guess Jeff and Morris, I'm gonna have to see what your mornings look like on Wednesday and Thursday. I'm gonna have to look at your schedule and see when we can fit those in. And yeah, it's kind of a bummer that, I don't know, we'll just have to figure it out. Okay. It's just something that I saw right now. So that's a little bit of a preview of what the schedule is going to look like. And so I'm going to send out an email later today, which kind of describe and kind of lay out what I just talked about and some of the changes in the schedule. And then I will send you this link. So actually, you guys already have the link, so you can look at it and just go into the new hybrid schedule tab at the bottom, and then you can see it. So, but I'll send it out again. Are there any questions, just basic questions regarding that? Okay. So yeah, like I said, I will send out an email a little bit later to describe it a little bit more. Okay, so yesterday you guys gave some presentations, which were very good, and I appreciated them. Actually, I'm missing Copeland too. Where's Copeland? Oh, maybe he'll come. Let me send him an email quick. Ugh, this is frustrating. The reason that I want to get people in class is because I'm gonna describe a little task that you're gonna do, and you're gonna need to hear it from me to understand what I'm talking about. So we just kind of finished up talking about this connection between engineers and society, and I hope that now you have a deeper understanding and a deeper respect for the responsibility that engineers have in our world. And you know, really, they have two main functions, and that's to improve the quality of our life, right, with the development of products, the development of you know, bridges and transportation and all of these things, but then also to maintain safety within our world. And so the products that we use, the things that we use on a daily basis, all need to be you know, designed so that they're safe for the people that use them, right? And so again, I hope you guys have kind of a new lens and a new view of that, and a new appreciation for that. Every time I hear about engineering disaster, you know, it really gives me a new view of it as well. So what we're going to transition to a little bit is something that I think that you'll be able to use in your projects. And we're going to talk about the engineering design process. And so to talk about that, I'm going to do it in a little bit of a different way. And what I'm going to have you do is dive into a little bit of it. Well, it's a big design project. It's actually the biggest design project that I've ever gotten myself into. Okay, so I have very much personal experience with this. I have a love for this, and I don't think any of you know this about me. So, so what I want to do is I want to share my screen with you, but I want to make sure that I get it in the right spot. Silly PowerPoint thing, it's just not transferring right. Okay. All right. So Okay, so I want to start off by asking you guys a question. How many of you are familiar with the term tiny houses? Okay. So a tiny house is basically a very small dwelling than you're probably used to. Well, I mean, you're probably used to like your bedroom, right? Um, but a tiny house has more than just a bedroom. A tiny house has a bedroom, it has a kitchen, it has a bathroom, it has a living room, it has storage for all your things. And all of this has to be done in approximately less than 400 square feet. And actually, a 400 square foot tiny house is really big, and uncommon. Okay. So there was this, believe me, I could talk like forever about this. Um, there was a movement, like a social movement that started in about 2005, somewhere around there. There was a guy by the name Jay Schaefer who started creating these tiny houses. And it wasn't the first time that these have been done, but his designs and his tiny houses started getting on the internet, and then it started going viral. And people started really talking about these things, really wanting to do these things. And so it became this architectural and social movement that really advocated this idea of living simply and getting down to the bare necessities of what you really need to survive in this world. And so it became a pretty huge movement, became very, very popular, with a certain niche of people, and it's still popular. I think it's kind of died. It's hit its peak, and it's kind of come down a little bit because of some cons that I'll talk about. But just think about this: if we have this small living area, there are a lot of advantages to that. Okay, so having a smaller footprint means basically being able to own something for a lot smaller price, right? If you try to buy an average house, and really this all depends on where you're living and where you're buying. Like Lucy, if you're buying a house in California, the average price is like way, way higher than average price here in Minnesota. So, depending on where you're at, they say like the average price of a home in America is well above like $300,000. Okay, and so that's for a relatively large house. Okay, with approximately 2,400 square feet of living space and all of that. And so this idea of having a really small footprint actually equates to being able to buy these things. You can actually buy them pre-built, like ready to go, for about like 60 or 70,000. Okay, and so that's a huge cost savings. Now, obviously, it's a lot smaller, and you don't get as much house and whatnot. But again, a lot of people want that. They want this idea of a simpler space, and so it actually equates to a smaller price. Also, maintenance charges for your house, like just fixing things, is much smaller because your house is much smaller. Heating costs, cooling costs are a fraction of the cost because again, you're heating smaller spaces and you're cooling smaller spaces. And so price wise, there's huge savings to be had with a tiny house. A lot of people get into the tiny house movement for environmental reasons. And so, one idea is smaller footprint equals, smaller carbon footprint, right? If you're not heating a big house and cooling a big house, you're actually like, helping your carbon footprint up. But also some people build tiny houses out of entire environmentally sound materials. So they'll use recycled materials to build the frame with, lumber that was used from other projects, flooring that was used from old buildings. And this idea of like recycling and reusing so that we don't have to continue to harvest more wood and, you know, buy it. So yes, they're doing their small part in environmentally sound practices. This other idea is that tiny houses are generally built on a trailer. And so you can kind of think of them as portable. I mean, you can hook up. Are you guys still able to hear me? Because it says my internet connection is not so good. Okay. So the idea of tiny houses, they're built on trailers, so you can hook up to them with a large truck and move your house. You know, you can't do that. I can't do that with the house that I'm in right now, and I'm sure none of you can do that with your houses. And so this idea of the house moves with you and it grows with you is an intriguing idea. It's an idea that a lot of people find to be a really big advantage, right? So there's a whole bunch of other pros, but I didn't want to go into all of it. The big con is that you know, in one person's eye, the size, right? Like, how are you going to be able to live life in, you know, basically the size of someone's closet? You know, a large, very large closet. But the biggest issue with tiny houses, and the reason that I think that they've kind of peaked and went down, is because of zoning restrictions. When you tell a government agency that you live in a tiny house, that's a big red flag, okay? Because tiny houses don't fit into the codes and the standards of all the other houses. And so it becomes a problem with taxes. Government agencies don't know how to tax these things. So let's say that you have a fire and you need to like call the fire truck out to help put that out. Like, tax paying dollars normally pay for that. But if you're not paying taxes for your tiny house, but you're still requiring services to come and help you out, that becomes a big gray area and a big problem. And so it is very difficult to live in a tiny house legally. So a lot of people, I would say the vast majority of people living in tiny houses, and there are a lot, they live in them illegally. They basically live by the principle, don't tell. Just what they don't know is not going to hurt them. And if you start asking questions, can I do this? They're going to say no. And so zoning restrictions are a big, big, big problem. So living in like larger towns or like suburbs or cities, it's very, very difficult because, you know, if you're living in a town or a city, your neighbors are going to see what you're doing. And so if they have a problem with it, they're going to call it in, and then it's going to be an issue. So a lot of advantages of tiny houses, and then there are some pretty big disadvantages. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and this is going to be fun, I think, because I did this, and I did this for a very long time, and went through all sorts of different trials and iterations of figuring out how this is going to work. I'm going to task you with designing the layout of a tiny house that you would live in, okay? So if you're going to live in a structure, there's stuff that you need to have, right? There are things like, you know, things for your kitchen, like a refrigerator, like a stove to cook in, maybe a toaster for your counter. Well, you're going to need counters, right? You're going to need cabinets to store your dishes. You're going to need couches to sit on. You're going to need a TV. You're going to need a spot for your computer. You're going to need all this stuff, okay, to live comfortably. And that's one of the constraints, okay? You could build a tiny house and live like a monk and not have anything, right? You could do that. But that's not your way of life, okay? Your way of life is that we have stuff in this world, okay? So we have to be able to deal with that stuff and find space for that stuff. So I'm going to put a big constraint on this project, which says that you need to design this tiny house so that you can live comfortably, okay? And living comfortably in your eyes means that you have a bathroom, you have a shower in there, you have a kitchen to cook food, you have a bed to sleep in, that's the comforts of life, and that's what you're used to. So I want you to design your tiny house around that, because that's the way that I did design my tiny house. Okay, and so one of the other restrictions is to think about, well, how big are you going to make this tiny house? And so the very common traditional size of a tiny house is 20 feet long by 8.5 feet wide. Okay, and I probably should have put, yeah, I'll add that. So 20 feet long and then 8.5 feet wide. The 8.5 feet wide comes because of a road restriction. Okay, when you're pulling these tiny houses down the road, anything over 8.5 feet, you need to have a wide load sticker and get permits to actually pull it down the road. So what, you know, tiny housers, that's what they're called, people who build tiny houses. What tiny housers do is they build it right to the max so that they don't have to do any extra government stuff. So no wide load permits, nothing like that. The 20 feet long is basically, it comes from, it's a common trailer size. It's easy to get, and you can just go to a place, order it, and it's done. There is a height restriction that people abide by, and that's what I'm going to add for this. The height restriction is 13.5 feet. Okay, and so the idea behind that is so that when you're pulling the house down the road, you don't hit a bridge. Okay, people have done it. It's a tragedy. Okay, they'll clip the whole top of their roof off with a bridge, and it's tragic, very tragic. And so that height restriction is a big design thing, because that really controls how high your levels are. Okay, so traditionally in tiny houses you'll have 2 levels. Okay, to be able to incorporate all the comforts of life, have you know, the kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom, living room, all of that thing, you need 2 levels. Okay, you just can't get around it. And so they have what are called lofts. Okay, and the lofts are the above level, and typically these lofts are, you have a ladder or something to get up to the loft, and then you know, your main level is you know, you can walk in there, you're not going to have to duck or anything like that. But the loft is typically no more than about 4 feet tall at its highest spot. So there's no tiny house loft that I've ever seen that you can walk standing up. Okay, just not, there's not enough room, right? So they're always generally sleeping areas where they're cozy spaces, and so they'll be about 4 feet at the maximum. So you're crawling around, but believe me, they're very cozy. All right. So what I want you guys to do is figure out how you would lay out a tiny house that you would live in. Okay, these are just a couple examples of some floor plans, some floor layout diagrams, and there are many different ways to do this. Okay, and you know, you can decide what's going to work for your style. And this is all about what it is like to be a designer, right? You have an open slate with some constraints, right? Now you have to figure out how you're going to make it work. Now, here's where the challenges come. The stuff that you put in there has certain dimensions, right? It has an actual size. Like if you're going to sleep in a bed, it's got to be at least 80 inches long. And so now you have to think about, well, where are you going to put an 80-inch long bed? And how is that going to work into your design? Okay, so what I've created here for you is a essential list of the items that you have to have in your tiny house. Okay, and that all gets based on like the comforts of our lives, right? So an essential item, a bed. You need to have a bed. Okay, you can't just sleep on the floor. That's not going to last for very long. You're not going to be happy. Okay, now you can put whatever size bed that you want in there, single, a double, a queen, or a king. Okay, I typically don't see a lot of people do kings. You can, it can be done, believe me, it can. But a queen bed will fit nicely in a tiny house if you figure out where to put it. Okay, so You'll need a table for eating or working. And this table that I've listed, 24 inches by 24 inches, is actually pretty small. And so you can make that bigger, smaller, whatever you want to fit your space. You're going to need a closet to you know, house your clothes. I gave you some dimensions there. This is actually a big challenge in tiny houses, figuring out how you're going to deal with clothes. Heating and cooling options, since we all live in places which is going to require some heating or cooling. A lot of tiny houses, for space constraints, use what is called a ductless mini split. And so you can research that a little bit, but essentially there's two units. There's one that's like the compressor side of things, the mechanical side of things, and that's outside of the tiny house. It's typically attached to the tiny house, the outside, or placed on like the tongue of the trailer. But there's an inside unit that actually like blows out the hot and the cold air. And so that usually hangs on a wall near a ceiling, and it's not like above a loft. It's not like in a loft. It's in a main area where, you know, the cold and hot air can circulate the house a little bit. Okay. You'll need a refrigerator. I've given some sizes for full size, apartment size, mini fridge, you know, and you get to decide what fits your space and what you want. Standard toilet sizes, standard showers. You can either do a stall shower, which is like a single, like one person, or you could do like a tub shower thing, which is, it's going to take up more space. Kitchen cabinets. I constrain you to have at least 2 with a sink in there. You can have more if you want, if you have the space. 2 cabinets is really not all that much. And so you also probably need some wall cabinets, which I guess I didn't put size in there, but you can figure out what size you want your wall cabinets to be. You'll need an oven or a stove, a sink. You can either have 1 basin or 2 basins. I've seen both in tiny houses. You'll need some sort of a seating arrangement, so like some couches or it's like bench seating. A lot of tiny houses have bench seats, just because, you know, they're easy to build and, you know, they're functional. You can do storage inside the bench seating and all that. And then I just said having a 42-inch LCD TV. Okay, so figure out where you're going to have a TV. I think all of you would probably have a TV in your house, I would think. So make space, figure out where you're going to put that. Now, I'll be honest with you. Just outfitting the tiny house with just this is pretty easy. You know, once you get things figured out, it's actually not that difficult in the size. What is difficult is the fact that each of you would come into this tiny house with like passions and you know, things that hobbies that you like to do that define you as a person, right? So you're going to have hobbies that have stuff associated with them, okay? And so this is what I call design challenges, okay? So this is all based on the people that inhabit these places, all right? So these are the design challenges. So I have 11 different ones. And, you know, honestly, if you want to think about a different one, but these are kind of the things that I was thinking about. All right. So some people may come into a tiny house and say, like, I need a full bathroom. Okay. This girl right here, back there, she was that person. Okay. She was like, I need a full bathroom. There's no questions about it. I need access to a bathtub. I need, you know, water in the bathroom. I need all that stuff. And we almost made it work for her. We almost made it work. But she came into the project stating that that's a criteria. All right. So you could be that person as well. Okay. Now, the thing is that if you come into the project, say, I need a full-size bathroom, that's going to take up space, right? So you have to, it's a balancing act. If you're going to take up space somewhere else, then you have to reduce space somewhere else, right? So you have to think about how that's all going to play in your ultimate design, okay? So I came into the project saying, I need a spot to put 7 guitars, and actually it grew to like 9 guitars, okay? And so all of those things take up space. And so we need to figure out how to adapt that, okay? I also came into the situation with a large stereo system. I love audio. I love listening to music. I have an old turntable and lots of records and old speakers that are very large. So it wasn't something I was willing to give up. So it was something that I need to figure out how I'm going to make it work. How am I going to make it adapt? Other people come in, they say, God, I love my clothes. And I need a spot for my clothes. I need a spot for all 36 pairs of my shoes. You know, they come into the project like that. Wood burning fireplace. This was something that was actually kind of important to us. It didn't end up being a wood burning fireplace, but somewhere that you can have a, and actually the reason that it came because Minnesota is very cold in the winter. And so the ductless mini split, generally it works good till about -5 Fahrenheit. Below that, it doesn't really work that well. And so we needed something to supplement heat. And so that came in the form of like a potbelly stove or a wood burning fireplace. Full-size kitchen. A lot of people, I know tiny housers who have said, look, man, I love to cook and I need a spot where I can have a full refrigerator, a full oven stove combination, cabinets, you name it. Like I need that space. That's important to me. We also came into the tiny house thing with being animal lovers. And so some people are like that. Like I know tiny house people who lived in a tiny house that was only 16 feet long, and they had a husky and another dog. So 2 dogs. So we're talking like one really big dog that sheds a lot, and then one small dog. And so it's like, gosh, how do you guys do that? Well, they figured it out. Spiral staircases. I've seen tiny houses that incorporate them, this spiral staircase to get up to the loft, which is a really cool idea. Exercise fanatic. Some people come into the project with this idea that they want to, you know, have space for dumbbells and, you know, foam rollers and exercise bands and all that stuff to be able to exercise. That's important to them. Other people know that they're going to become a parent, so they have to incorporate a nursery into their tiny house. And so, you know, you got to have spot for this, the crib to go, the books and the diapers and all that stuff that, you know, allows you to have a child, right? Other people, this is kind of an easy one. A washer and dryer. They want a place to do their own laundry, right? They don't want to take their laundry to the laundromat, and they want a place where they can do both in one. This actually, if you research it, is really not that difficult of a thing to incorporate. And so what I'm going to require you to do is pick 2 to 3 of these things and incorporate them into your design. Okay, so 2 to 3. So I've done a lot of talking, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this PowerPoint, and you'll see here I have 2 slides here that says main floor and lofts. Okay, they're the same grid diagram, and what you're going to do is you're going to, I think I'd prefer you to do PowerPoint. Just create a floor layout diagram on PowerPoint or Google Slide. Okay, and how you're going to do that is, let's say that you want to put a cabinet in there that's 24 inches wide, or let's just do the table, 24 by 24. Each one of these squares is equal to 6 inches in real life. So if I have a 24-inch cabinet in real life, how many squares is that going to take up? Show me on your hands. Okay, so if each square is 6 inches, that's 1. 2 squares is 12 inches. 3 squares, 18 inches. 4 squares is 24. Okay, so so if I want to insert that, I would go to, like, if I want to draw that out, I would insert a shape, okay, like this, and then I would pick a line, and then I would say, okay, well, I want my table to be here, so I'm going to make a line from, darn it, I screwed it up. 4 squares there, and then I'll just do another line here, and you know, you can actually like copy and paste things, and then move it around, and then it'll snap to it. So there's 4. And then you can copy this one again, and then just snap it into place here. So there's our desk, okay, and you can come in here, like I can barely see this, so, and unfortunately my zoom thing is in the way here. You can increase, the thickness of the line so that you can actually see it. And what I want you to do is label these things, okay, because if we just look at all these boxes and things that you have in your diagram, nobody's going to know what it is. So insert some text and say that this is a table. Like that, something like that. Now, the lines may bug you at first, the grid patterns, and you can format that out, okay? Once you draw your shapes and put your text boxes in, you can come in here and you can probably do this in Google Slides too. You have to change the transparency of the picture, and as you make it less and less transparent, you'll basically get where there's no lines at all, okay? Or if it's something, have it like this, and you can still see the grid lines, and then they're not as bothersome as they normally would be. So I have a slide for doing the main floor, and then I have a slide for doing the lofts, okay? So those are obviously going to be in the same trailer, the same house and everything, so just make them one on top of the other, okay? So who's got some questions? I gotta see what time are we done? Oh my gosh, 10:10. Am I perfect or what? Who's got some questions about this? One of my big questions would be like, when's it due? Because this literally, I've spent, like, I can't even count, like hundreds of hours just researching different layouts and figuring stuff out.
Actually, I had a questions.
Yeah. Wait, Jeff, you do have a question?
So actually, I think can I have a like, so it must be 2 floors, or like I can have 1.5 or 2.5 if I just fix all the things on the document you show us.
Yeah, so
or we only
basically it is like 1.5 floors, because you'll have a main floor that'll have full head height there, and then you'll have a loft that'll be kind of like a half of a floor, and so that's likely where you're going to put bedrooms and stuff like that. So I just want to talk a little bit about timeline. I'm going to give you guys all weekend to think and work on this, and then Monday you're going to have a work day, Tuesday you're going to have a work day, and then Wednesday it would be due. Okay, so Wednesday we'll come together and we'll do kind of a quick group. I'll have you share your screen. We'll walk through your design. We'll see what you included for your challenges and so on and so forth. Does that sound okay? Now, likely on like Monday and Tuesday, I'm gonna probably like check in with you. I'll send you an email and just be like, hey, how things going? Show me where you're at, kind of thing, just to see how things are going. Because I know this is 2 things. It's fun because guess what? You guys are all experienced livers. Okay, you know what it's like to live in a space. You know what you need personally, right? I can't tell you that, but you know what you need. So you can figure out like what's gonna work for you. So this is a basic type project, but this is actually a really complex project. And you could spend a long, long time figuring this out, perfecting it, changing it, making it work, all right? And so again, this whole project is all based on like introducing you to the design process. And honestly, this was the biggest design project I've ever gotten myself into. And so I will share with you my experiences a little bit later in time, and what we ended up doing and how we solved our problems and what we built. And so I'll give you a little presentation on that at another time. Okay, I want to give you some time to dig into it. So I know I'm 1 minute over. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Okay, sounds good. We will see you guys. Some of you, I will see you. Actually, I don't know. Do I have check-ins with anybody next hour? No, I got you. Oh, and then remember dinner tonight. Okay, so I will send you an email a little bit later telling you where to meet, what time, and all that good stuff. Sound good? All right.
All right,
See you guys
guys,
later.
meeting.